Thomas, with one of the best straight talks we are ever going to have, past, present, or future. Trish, my lovely partner, and I get to go deep dive with the amazing Elizabeth Apr. And I'm going to try not to embarrass her too much as I talk about her. I've been around the block. I'm 65. I've sat with people that are supposedly enlightened. I've interviewed almost every author that I've ever wanted to meet. And actually, most of them were pretty cool. And some were, but I got to say, Elizabeth is one of the most fascinating souls. I can't even say human beings. She's one of the most fascinating souls inhabiting a human body while multidimensional, doing other things. And what I love about Elizabeth is that she challenges our reality in a very loving way and in a very empowering way. And Elizabeth, as best as I can tell, she's here to help wake us up and help us remember who we truly are. And she does it with so much love and so much passion. And we get to spend like some quality time talking with this amazing woman. So there she is. There is Elizabeth Apr, and thank you for being with us.
Hi, Trish. Hi, Scott. It's so nice to be here. I always love spending quality time with you guys. So yeah, it's going to be a really fun time. I already feel it. Good vibes.
All right, so I'm going to go right into asking you some deep questions. And Trish, jump in, of course. Don't let me be too dominant here. Okay. Of course, we're kind of celebrating that you wrote a new book. And the title of the book itself is really, really fascinating. And so tell us about your new book, and then we'll talk about where people can, get it. But, the idea that we're not dying, we're waking up. But parts of us are dying. So that's the name of the book, by the way. You're not dying, you're just waking up. Tell us about what this book is really about, and maybe how you've experienced that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, before I get into that, I just want to ask a technical question. I do have a little pop-up on Zoom that says you're in a practice session. So what does that mean?
It means I didn't start the webinar for you. So we're live on Facebook, but thank you so much for
perfect. Noticing. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Now awesome. We can welcome our webinar people. Already she has rescued. See how changes the world and
I'm tuning in. Yeah, so I'm really excited. It took me forever to come up with the book name, which is really funny because, I have like 5 other books on the back burner, and the name of the book always comes first, and then the content kind of fills in. With this one, the content came through. I was actually on a cruise in Greece with my wife, and it was 40,000 words that came through me in 4 days. It's a very, I consider it to be a very light, very conversational type of book. It's funny because it's literally the way that I speak. So it's very conversational as a whole. And yeah, I went through a lot of different titles. But this is the one that really stuck, and it made me smile every time I said it. And it is such a conversation starter, even though I feel like it's a bit of a mouthful. But yeah, you're not dying, you're just waking up. Such a conversation starter. This book is kind of like the mainstream awakening guide and journey for everyone who has been on the path, but especially for people who are just starting to be on the path. So it's kind of a chronological account of everything that you are going to experience throughout and during your awakening ascension. And it even goes into, your soul mission and purpose, potentially your different interdimensional connections, and a little bit of quantum physics. Got to throw that in there at the end, simultaneous time. And I feel like that one of the biggest symptoms during our ascension and awakening is this feeling of dying, whether that be through emotional symptoms, physical symptoms such as exhaustion, aches and pains, headaches, just this nonstop, sometimes nausea, indigestion. And then, of course, the emotional feeling of I'm dying. The world is collapsing. I've lost my job. My partner's left me. I've got no more money left, and this is where we're at. And so that death is really, truly only just a rebirth, right? So this guide is great because not only does it validate our experiences of, oh my goodness, I'm not crazy, right? There are other people who have gone through this, but there's an end to it as well. There's a follow through, right? And one of the biggest, things that I love is some people criticize me being too like over optimistic. And in my view, it's like, I'm on the other side. I'm not fully there or anywhere yet, but I'm on the other side of the dying piece. Every few years I'll die again. It's a nice little rebirth. But I'm optimistic because I can see both sides, of the death and the rebirth, and that neutrality that we can kind of come to in the middle as well. So I feel like this book is a very light overview of every concept that I've ever really shared and talked about in the past 10 years and channeled. And then my next books moving forward are going to be a really serious deep dive into some much more complex topics. And I think it really depends on where you're at in your own journey, and how you're going to really perceive and integrate the content of the book as well.
Beautiful. I want to welcome, we've got about 75 people in the Zoom room with us. So welcome everybody, welcome family, and let us know where you're from. I see we've got people from Mexico and all over. It's always John from Norfolk is always with us, Arkansas. So it's great to see where you're all from. Elizabeth, I always like to ask people to give an example from their own life of how they did what they're teaching. So can you give an example of a death you went through that was challenging and how you managed that and managed to come to the other side with gratitude, with that optimistic, positive attitude?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are many ego deaths and there are really big ego deaths. And I kind of define an ego death as, a loss of sense of self or a loss of your identity, this thing that we've attached to, that we've created, that we assume or we believe that it is us. So I'm trying to think, they happen so regularly. So for example, I think the biggest and most recent one was when I moved from Canada to California. And that was a death on all aspects of my entire identity. The only thing that remained was my understanding within spirituality, right? Okay, there's still something out there, and that really helps me kind of be grounded and have something of consistency. But when I left, I left a thriving business, an office space in downtown Toronto. I left all of my clients. I left my fiance, who was a male at the time, by the way, which means that I changed my sexuality. I've never been with a woman before that. And so that was all new. And that also meant that I had to come out to my family. And that was a weird concept for me because it doesn't make sense that would need to happen even, So, yeah. So, death of sexuality, death of relationship, death of my country and my connection to my, nationality and moving to a different country, death of my social network and all of my friends, and then I think just not feeling like I was being supported for friends and family. Like, what are you doing? You're just up and leaving everything that you've ever built and you're going there. And then probably the death of financials as well, because it was my financial burden upon deciding to leave my fiance that I had to basically pay out all of the wedding costs, right? So down payments on catering, down payments on venue, the ring, like everything. So I basically came to California really broke, still with, conviction and belief that I was doing the right thing. And honestly, following my heart and following love was the best thing that I could have ever done, even though it made no sense to me that I could even love this kind of human that was not the humans that I usually love, right? So it challenged me with all of the things, and it was amazing. And now it feels like, in this place where I allowed that to happen, and I trusted that intuition, everything else is happening really fast, right? Once you have that initial major ego death and collapse of identity, you really open the doors to what else is possible. Now I'm not attached to anything. Hey, if I could love a woman, like, bring it on, world. Like, what else is next, right? So that's kind of where I've been at, is just in this realm of infinite possibilities, and it's been incredible.
Oh, Elizabeth April, thank you so. Sorry, Scott. I just want to jump in and be like, wow, it's so amazing to hear some of the transitions that you've gone through, and I'm inviting everyone who's watching and listening, and in our panel here, in our participant room, is, hey, tell us some ego deaths that you've gone through or that you're going through. And I would also like to invite you to talk a little bit about how through COVID, the planet has gone through this like massive ego death, and how everything has shifted, and it's now shifting again, right? And so some of us who were like, "Whoa, that was really nice. That was a nice break. Can we go?" It's already shifting, and we're recreating the identity. So how do you our own personal identity and our social identity? So just like, I don't exactly have the question specifically, but I think you can hear me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that everything that went down in 2020 was a forced ego death for the world collectively, but also a forced ego death for us individually. And one of the most beautiful things about what went down in 2020 was it forced all of us to go within, because we didn't have the distraction of the material world, the physical world. We had the four walls around us, and probably television, and maybe exercise, maybe some cooking, but that's about it. We had a lot of time to go inward. We had a lot of time to be introspective. And this event has been planned, yes, by certain agendas, but planned by even bigger agendas for quite some time, to allow us to have this space in our reality to switch everything around, right? Like, I mean, 2020 was an amazing year for me, just in general, right? Because the world's waking up and they're seeking information, and boom, here it is. Or here's part of it anyway. And for a lot of other people, like, I couldn't imagine people who went out drinking in bars all the time, and that was their identity, or maybe that was their social scene. Or I kind of chuckle sometimes, people who like care about name brands, right? Like the Gucci's and the, I don't even know, Chanel's of the world, right? And it's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to have the Gucci sweatpants and wear them every day? Like, who's actually watching you anymore? No one. So those things don't actually matter. And so I think it really put a lot of things into perspective. And I also chuckle a little bit at those who I observed and witnessed say, I just want things to go back to normal, right? And that means that they're resisting this change and flow. The only thing that we need in order to transmute from third dimension frequency to fifth dimension frequency is the ability to change. So when mothers ask me, are my children going to transcend to a new frequency? Or is my mother who's stubborn going to transcend? And I said, they can be negative, they can be stubborn, but as long as they're open and willing to change, they're going to move on to the new frequency, right? So all animals, pretty much all kids, I mean, kids are so adaptable, right? They're so easily adaptable. They're so willing to change, especially when it feels better for them and less, anxious for them. But it is the ones who are heavily engrossed and attached to the material, physical, 3D world, who are going to have a much more difficult time anchoring into this new frequency. But we're all getting pushed right now to make that change, and it can be difficult at times. 2021, I find, has been way more challenging than 2020. It feels like 2021 has been a roller coaster, whereas 2020 was kind of just an in-between year. It was like, it almost like didn't even exist. We were just coasting. 2021 is the year of real work, and we are getting hit with waves upon waves of, transcendence and energy. And we're being forced to deal with our shadow work. you know, even for people who have done shadow work before, there is
Mm.
still stuff coming up today, you know.
I actually just went on we'll call it a vacation, but it was really hard. It was really emotional, and it was really like chipping away at the systems of oppression that I totally did not know that I was participating in. And it's really looking at it from a different perspective at all times. So it's like, okay, what can I just dissolve and keep moving forward into the light? Can you speak a little bit to how not to get stuck, like for our viewers, how not to get stuck in the past, into this, you know, third dimension, and keep moving forward? You know, like, is there like maybe a whisper, like a teaser from the book?
Yeah, totally. That's a great question. So right now, what, like for 2021, it's been just a couple of months, right? But it's been pretty wild. What I've been noticing, this is a really exciting concept. I talk about it a little bit in the book about time, simultaneous time, and how that all kind of makes sense. But what's been happening in 2021 is something called quantum looping. That's what I call it. I don't know what the world calls it. We have been colliding and amalgamating all timelines, past, present, future. And upon doing so, any part of our past that is stuck within trauma is all coming back into the present moment, into the now moment right now, which means crazy vivid dreams, like weird stuff is coming up. And like, it's been, I literally asked a couple nights ago, I'm like, please don't allow me to dream tonight. I just need to rest because I'm like working overtime right now. And so dreams are helping us clear those old stuck energies, those traumatized energies. And also, like, I don't know if you guys have noticed this as well, but especially in February, like really random in the middle of the day flashbacks to random insignificant childhood memories, or even like random memories of like a couple years ago that didn't really make sense, but they're full on flashbacks. I was also getting a ton of flashbacks to dreams from childhood as well, dreams that I didn't remember for many years. And I was getting random, very vivid flashbacks in the middle of the day. I'm like, what's going on? And it's quantum convergence. We are converging timelines right now. And I want to mention something else about the future timelines, right? Like, why don't we get hit with future timelines? And we do, and that's more deja vu and looking into the future. But because there's always a possibility of change, we can always change those timelines. And that's why we don't necessarily have to clear the future. Sometimes we get visions of the future in order to better navigate the future. That's a totally different story. So so as far as, you know, how not to get stuck, the biggest thing that I've observed, especially within the spiritual community, is something that I believe is termed spiritual bypassing, which is something along the lines of the universe will decide for me, right? Or, you know, this is just something that I have to go through. And I get all of that as well. But the best thing we can do when we are either reliving and looping back to a trauma, or we're actually currently going through a trauma in our life, is to sit with it.
Mm-hmm.
Aha.
Yep.
To sit with it and to observe it objectively. So, and it's so crazy. Like, I've really deep dived into this whole nothingness and this ignorance, and the fact that it's okay to be ignorant and it's okay to be in that energy of nothingness. And once you're okay with the nothingness, wow, you really expand yourself infinitely. When you're trying to reach something, when you're trying to do something all the time from moment to moment, you take yourself away from the infinite of everything that there is. So what I've noticed is, I was trying to move anxiety energy the other night, like just this crazy wave of anxiety hitting me. I'm like, I'm good. Life is fine. Like, what's happening? And it was so intense. So I'm tapping in. I see the anxiety. It's like this thick ball of like, almost like, it was like an orangey red energy in my solar plexus, which is odd. Anyway, and I was trying to send it white light. And I literally heard my higher self saying, stop trying. And I'm like, what do you mean? This sucks. Like, this is like, I don't want to be anxious anymore. And once again, the higher self, stop trying, just be with it. And I'm like, okay. So instead of trying to send it white light, instead of trying to heal myself, instead of trying to put action, even if it's non-physical action, I was just with it. I observed it, and it took a while. It took about 30 minutes. But slowly but surely, all of the layers of that big ball of anxiety that was just sitting there for no apparent reason, it started to fade away and get smaller. And then right at the end, I'm like, yes, I did it. And it like a huge wave came back, and I'm like, no, and then I had to sit with it, right, for another 15 minutes. And then it was gone, and it was gone, and it has not been back. It's a more stable version of clearing energy is through the objective awareness, because if you try and distract, or you try and dismiss, or you try and leave it up to the universe to figure out, which is you, by the way, it'll just come back because you haven't learned the lesson, because you haven't sat with it, because that's the whole point of it coming up in the first place, So I've been learning that just at a human level pretty intensely. And that's how I know not to get stuck. And that is the easiest way to move and clear any energy, is just to focus on it. But it's not actually that easy, because we all just want to take action and get a quick fix. And it's not a quick fix. It is. It's not. It takes work. Let's just say that.
Oh man, you're speaking to something so powerful. Like so powerful, is to be with what is human. Sorry, y'all, we are in these human bodies. It's annoying, I know. And there's things like anxiety that comes up. And what I just to like touch on that a little bit with you is, I realize that most of my anxiety is just pure excitement that I've labeled as future anxiety. And I'm like, oh, this is it's because I'm excited about something so deeply that I'm like, and to just be with it, because that is part of you, is the one way to just love yourself even more deeply, and other people, right? So I love that you said that, just to be with it and to integrate it. So good.
Yep. And actually, one of my longest chapters in the book, other than the alien and the soul mission chapter, is the chapter on anxiety and just breaking it all down. And anxiety is a way, all anxiety is what I've channeled in 2020, is it's just a flip in frequency. So if you were meditating all day and you're like in a great high vibrational place, and then your friends, maybe pre-COVID, are like, yo, let's go out to a bar. Instantly, I get hit with a wave of anxiety, not because it's going to be a bad experience, but because it's going to be a different vibrational frequency than I've been in all day. And we are just preparing for the switch in vibration. So just like you mentioned, there is no difference between the sensation of anxiety and excitement. The only difference is our perception on it. So in one of my meditations that was all about anxiety, that went with that anxiety chapter, I had someone think about what made them very anxious and then flip their perception of it to think about it in a very exciting way. And to be able to do that is to really, truly take our power back in this reality, to say, it's never about the thing itself. It's about my perception, my belief, and my overall vibration when observing that thing.
Yes.
There's a wonderful quote. Fear is excitement without enough breath. Fear is excitement without enough breath, right? Because that's the thing. If we can, and what does breath do? Breath brings us into presence, right? So there's kind of a circle here with what you're talking about, learning to be fully present. I have a thought that's actually going to lead to a question for you. So many of the people that I know you work with, and by the way, I want to welcome, we've got over 100 people in the Zoom room, and I'm really appreciating all of your comments. I did ask people to write about their ego deaths, and a lot of people have shared very vulnerably. So I'm going to save the chat. I'll send it to Trish and Elizabeth after the show is over, so we can read through all of your comments. So we will read, at least I'll speak for myself, we will read your comments. Thank you. So quite often, almost all the people that are attracted to your work, that are attracted to our work in Love Coach Academy, are highly sensitive people who all of a sudden find themselves feeling emotions, and they don't know, why am I all of a sudden sad? Why am I all of a sudden anxious? Why am I all of a sudden angry? And I just want to acknowledge what I perceive and then hear kind of your comments on it. There are so many places where it may be coming from. Epigenetics. We are carrying the trauma of our ancestors going back at least 7 generations, which means that there are ancestors you have no idea what their names were, no idea what their lives were, but you are carrying their trauma. And so that comes up. Sometimes we're picking up the wave of the masculine or the wave of the culture. You know, right now there's such a dynamic going on around racism, as I believe our country is reaching a new level of recognizing how dominant white supremacy has been, how subtle it's been, and it's a painful wake up. I'm a privileged white man, and I'm beginning to realize, oh my God, look at all the subtle ways I maintained white supremacy and white superiority. So it's up for us. So there's all these waves going on that those of us, those of you who are sensitive, you feel it, you pick up on it. So that's kind of the thought. And so for you, Elizabeth, what are some of your suggestions for when a wave, an uncomfortable wave of emotion, an uncomfortable wave of experience comes in and you don't even know where it's coming from, how to work with it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. A lot of people ask me all the time, actually, how do you exist in Los Angeles? All of my friends right now, all of my sensitive, empathic friends are leaving LA, and I don't blame them. And I think that a big part of this exit is the fact that we did what we came here to do, which was to actually clear the Hollywood portal. I've talked a little bit about that. We will talk a little bit about portals in this interview. But yeah, so a lot of people just wonder, like, how can you be in the middle of all of that energy and density? And it is dense here. But I have such a great ability to basically separate myself and put my walls up. So it's an energetic, healthy boundary is really what it is. So I really learned this, especially being with my wife. Like, we're so deeply connected, which is great because we're very telepathic. So we don't have to really, there's not a lot of words that need to happen. So it's easy that way. But if she has a backache, I have a backache, and I instantly take that from her. Or if I have a headache, she has a headache, and she takes that from me. And so, you know, one day in conversation a couple months ago, you know, we were just like conversing, standing side by side and or in front of each other. And I'm like, oh man, like, is your neck hurting? Like, it's like right in the right side, because my neck doesn't usually hurt like that. And she's like, yeah, you know, that's mine. She's like, it's feeling better now, actually. And so in that moment, I did an energetic cord cutting, and I just cut my cords with her. And some people feel weird about cutting cords. I cut my cords with my wife almost every day just to create a new frequency together. It's not, there's no fear, there's no attachment. It's like, I love this person. I'm not, you know, excommunicating them from my life, but it's important. If you're not doing energetic cord cuttings with family members and your loved ones on a daily basis, how do you think you can cut cords with the entire planet, right? Even after my YouTube live videos, I'll look at my aura, and I'll literally look like a porcupine because of all of the cords that have connected to me, like thousands of cords around my aura. And I look like this white porcupine with all these freaking cords around me. And then I just do the cutting energetically, and instantly I feel better, right? Instantly I haven't taken that on. So I do that. I put myself into a bubble. I put a bubble around my place. So it always feels like a sanctuary, no matter where I am. And so it's really the healthy, there's no way that we can do work for the planet, for the humanity, if we are taking on so much. There's no output. If there's way too much input, you're going to short circuit yourself. So for me, I only ever receive input on things that improve my way of living. Maybe it's information, maybe it's something material, maybe it's the right person that I have to meet at that time, you know. That's what I will receive. And in that way, I'm able to output as much as I do, even doing energetic work, not in front of the camera, because I'm not in this place of being onslaught with energy. So I just cut everyone out, and then I discern, what I want in and what I'm putting out. And I'm very clear about that. And I really, since a kid, I haven't been affected. When I was a kid, I was unable to go to public restaurants. I would actually throw up most of the time going to public places because I took on too much of people's energy, and I would have to actually purge out their energy. Didn't realize what that was until much later in life, but I really truly haven't had an issue with being an empath, being in LA at all.
I want to follow up on cord cutting for a moment because it's so important and some people might not really know about that. I first learned about cord cutting, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago. And I had been involved in a relationship early in my life with a woman who actually ended up becoming a very big television star. And I was very much in love with her. And when I worked with a therapist who helped me to tune in and see where I was corded, and I hadn't had contact with this person in about 12 or 15 years. But oh my God, there was this incredible cord right into my navel, and it was huge. And I saw that she's just been sucking on my energy for all these years. And so we did the cord cutting. The next day, she called me. Hadn't heard from her in years. Hey, what's going on? It was really fascinating. And so, and I've had similar experiences like that with cutting cords. So just share with us a little bit more about that. And for people, especially that it's new to them, how do you do it?
Yeah, that's amazing. I've had so many incredible experiences with cord cutting. It's a huge part of my shift masterclass as well. You write letters to all of your family members, say what you've never had, said before, burn the letters, cut the cords, right? So I think the most common version of cord cutting is the burning letters. The reason why that's so effective, this is really cool. It's a huge download a while ago. The reason why burning cord cutting letters is so effective is because we're taking energy that may be harmful to us and connections and people that may be harmful to us, and we're bringing it into the third dimension frequency by making it tangible, by writing it down. And that's why when you want to manifest something, you write down what you want to manifest, because it pulls it. You're forcing a thought. You're forcing the 5D into 3D. The writing is the translation, right? So when you want to clear something, the writing is the tangible, is the translation. That's just kind of a stepping stone to get to the point where if you're just doing all energy work and you feel confident and good in doing all the energy work, then you can just work in a quantum way and you don't have to have the stepping stone of writing the letters, right? So I think the two biggest methods would be writing letters to your loved ones. You're not sending them the letters. And then when you feel good about that letter, there's a lot of things that need to go into that letter, like just how you felt, the trauma itself, the forgiveness, forgiving them, forgiving yourself, and the communication. What haven't you said that's stuck in that throat chakra that you need to say now? And then usually the sentence that I put at the end of my cord cutting letters, if you guys who are listening want to do this is really important, verbatim. This is what I typically say. I'm going to try and bring it back. I clear any and all contracts with the people, the situations, and the energies stated above. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. But you say that and you're clearing any contracts. And then you burn the letter, and that's a very tangible way of cutting cords. Or like I mentioned before, if you tend to dream often and you're a very visual person and you've got a vivid imagination, then I would say just seeing, visually imagining cords between you and your mother, or you and your brother, or you and your best friend, and cutting that cord, and cutting the cord with the intention of, I am interested in a healthier relationship with this individual, for the highest good of all involved. And that will really kind of help. And one more thing that I want to mention too is when I channel past lifetimes for people, it is essentially an aspect of cutting a cord between that person and their trauma that has been stuck in their Akashic records from that lifetime. So I really feel like knowledge is power. The second that someone hears what happened, where they've been, and why that keeps affecting them or keeps coming up in this lifetime, that instantly clears and releases in their frequency, and all of a sudden it's no longer an issue. So I've seen incredible turnarounds after cord cuttings in sessions, but also after past life regressions in sessions as well, where, you know, they get to really see the past, observe it, be with it, don't do anything about it, just be with it, be okay with it, accept it lovingly, and then you get to move on, you know, and that's what we're doing right now. We're doing the work.
A lot of people are saying this is new for me, and thank you, Sarah, who actually was able to hear what your affirmation and get it into writing, so it's in the chat box. So good job, Sarah.
Oh, cord cutting is just, it creates so much space within relationships. If you're still wondering if it'll work, it creates space for everyone to be their authentic sovereign selves together in intimate space. It creates more intimacy. I love that you brought up the Akashic records. I'm totally gonna take it somewhere we didn't discuss. Sorry, but I had this dream. I wanted to tell you. I had this dream, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, that I was given the key to the Akashic records. And it was this tiny, oh gosh, so I'm in this like cabin out in the middle of the forest, and it was in a tiny little card catalog on the floor underneath. It was like a little wooden underneath this staircase, and I had to like open it up. Like, it was amazing. And I woke up and I was like, I want to go back to sleep now. It's like this ornate little key that I get to open up, and I don't know. I just wanted to share that with you. I thought it was really an interesting experience to just be gifted it in that very, you know, theta delta space so purely. It was amazing, and things really shifted for me after that. Like I had a lot of downloads that just shifted in my body. And I'd love to talk to you. I would love to ask you a question about, do you offer Akashic record readings for people? And yeah, like some people might not know what the Akashic records are. So can you speak to that too?
Yeah, so I actually talk about this in my book, and it's, I don't know what chapter it's in, but I talk about 3D versus 5D memory. And it's like, it's definitely one of the later chapters because it's pretty intense, but it was a huge download that I had a couple of years ago. And 3D memory just plainly is stored in the brain, right? The physical brain. Our brain only has a certain, it's pretty expansive, but it only has a certain number of neurons and neural pathways and pattern recognition and you know, an ability to even be aware of a certain spectrum. Our 5D memory is our soul's memory. So it's kind of like another term of Akashic records. So when I channel, I'm not going to my brain. I'm going to this place where it holds infinite amounts of information beyond space and time, right? Which is really amazing. So yeah, I mean, I've had thousands of clients, and I've done many Akashic record readings, and even past life readings off this planet. Those are my favorite. I'm not doing any one-on-one sessions right now, or probably ever again. I just feel like I don't have time for that, but I do have coaching calls every single month. I love them so much. And whoever's a YouTube member gets to join this coaching call. And we've had just incredible things. And actually, Scott, as you were mentioning, a little bit earlier, you were talking about clearing the ancestral traumas as well, right? So not only just our past lifetimes, not only our childhood in this lifetime, but now we're clearing all of our lines that we're connected to as well. Not to mention potentially some of the interdimensional traumas that we may be carrying in our DNA. Like, it's infinite, right?
Yes.
And so just a couple of days ago in a coaching call, it was so amazing. I had this woman, and her mother passed away 9 months ago. So I do mediumship as well. And I tuned into her mother, such a sweet, just beautiful soul. And it was so interesting. Like her mother she was an earth angel when she was here. So when she crossed over, she went, right through to the other side. She was an angel and she was whizzing around. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I think her name was Una or Kay something. Yeah, I think the woman's name was Una and then her mother's was Kay. Anyway, and so she said, oh yeah, she's like, I'm clearing all of the ancestral trauma. And I looked into it and it was her daughter who was getting the session from me, who is actually meant to clear the ancestral trauma in her lifetime. And I told her daughter, I'm like, your mom is going ahead and clearing all of the ancestral trauma that your lineage was holding. Therefore, you now have space for the rest of your life to really just be a human and live your life rather than have to clear that ancestral trauma. So it's really interesting how spirits on the other side can also help us clear the things that we chose to clear. So one more thing about like karma and past lifetimes. I'm halfway through my next book right now. It is about I don't even know. There's a cool name that I came up with for the book, but I forget it now. It's about karma, and it's like a deep, extremely deep dive into karma and past life or lifetime imprinting. It's pretty wild. So I'm developing this technique right now, which we can actually apply to getting the vaccine and other harmful chemicals and things, where we can actually, this is so wild. I'll just like plant this seed here. We are able to upload aspects of our vibrational frequency and our physical reality to the 5D cloud, to the Akashic records, but also to the collective consciousness around this planet and potentially source frequency itself. It's kind of a form of spiritual bypassing, because you're like, look, universe, I can't do this anymore in this lifetime. I can't take this on, or I can't learn this lesson. I'm going to upload it. And when you upload it, you allow everyone else to take on the harmful whatever vibrations of that thing. Not only did I download this technique a couple months ago, but a week after I downloaded the technique, and I was writing about it in this book, my dog ended up eating a ton of chocolate when we were gone. And I was so worried about her, we were in the middle of Joshua Tree. Like, I'm like, well, the nearest vet is like 2 hours away. Like, what do we do? And so I started just intuitively doing this technique on my dog. And I started to take all of the harmful, whatever it was, cacao out of the chocolate, out of her system, the poison basically out of her system. And I started uploading it to the collective. And I saw all of these spirits and energies taking on that harmful poison from my dog. And she was fine. Like, she was more than fine. She pooped out some tinsel the next day, but she was good, Mm-hmm. So it was so divine. And I'm excited to bring that technique to the world, but we're getting to a place where it's quantum. We're working at quantum levels. We are healing instantaneously. We are clearing instantaneously. There's no like steps anymore, which is definitely difficult for me when I'm trying to teach people things and they want something tangible. And I'm like, it just is what it is. There's like, just sit with it, like, that's not a step. It's just what it is. So it's interesting, but for the information to come through at that capacity, it definitely teaches me that the world is shifting, the vibrations are increasing, and if I'm able to receive it, it means that I'm able to give it to humanity, and it means that humanity is ready for it, and that's a beautiful thing.
Wow. Okay, I don't want to go much further without showing the book, and we'll do it again at the end of the show, but you guys, this book is amazing. And so definitely we want to encourage everybody, go to Amazon and just if you put in Elizabeth Apr book, it comes right up. You're Not Dying, You're Just Waking Up. And you can get it on paperback, it's only $20. Or you can buy it, I guess it looks like Kindle is coming on. So you can also read with Kindle Unlimited. So go get the book. You're not dying, you're just waking up. And I think what's important too is, obviously, just as I watch you, Elizabeth, you've got so much wisdom, so much flowing through. got to get the book and read and digest, because I've learned with authors and visionaries such as yourself. A big one for me growing up was Jane Roberts and the Seth books, Alice Bailey going way back. Alice Bailey, Jane Roberts, yourself, you're all, in my reality, very high vibration beings that come in and bring a lot of very new paradigm understanding as best as you can into the earth plane. But most of us mere mortals do need to take time to really digest it, to really take it in, because it's such a pattern disrupt. It's such a change in the mass hallucination we've been living in, right? And one last thing I'll say, and then back over to you. We are living in this incredible, magical time in which our science and our spirituality have become one. They're no longer separated. Our highest form of science, quantum physics, teaches us about the unified field. We now understand, oh, wow, there really is this oneness in terms of a unified field of ever-changing molecules, which is what the great spiritual teachers have been telling us forever. And so we are understanding on a deeper level, and our scientists get to back it up to help us to trust it more. And visionaries like Elizabeth are offering these amazing paradigm-changing ways of seeing the world. That being said, I want to hear about portals and maybe talk about the Hollywood portal, since you brought that up before. And I was born and raised in LA, very close to Hollywood. So I got a little personal interest in what you have to say about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, when you were talking there, and just kind of like being ahead of my time a little bit is what I feel. And I don't want to believe it, but I definitely get that backlash because I'm, sometimes these concepts are misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
I have a remote phone number. And so we now are taking voicemails and we're taking text messages from people, which is very fascinating. And people get alerted as well, with the text messaging service when I have a new video. So that it works really well. And so right before this portal video that I did a battle, it was yesterday, I believe, right before that, and it was very nerve-wracking. It was a very intense dynamic and situation. There was a voicemail that someone left, and this guy was an ex, he worked with, I don't know if it was JFK or Reagan, or he worked with one of the presidents back in the day. And he said, Elizabeth, I'm 65. I love your stuff. And he's like, I want to let you know that you're going to get backlash for what you're saying. And he's like, you're only getting backlash because you're pushing the narrative of what people have been led to believe, which we both know is a lie. And he said, the more backlash you get, just know that the more aligned you are to spreading the truth. And I'm like, yes. And that's exactly what I needed to hear, diving into this portal activation video. And I do see just a question that someone had in buying my book, and then we'll talk about portals. If you bought the physical book, you still have the opportunity to get the meditations and the homework. And also, what else do we have? We have a digital oracle card deck as well that goes with the book. So that can all be found on my website, and it's the book bundle or just book page. So on my website, and you'll see all the book offerings there. If you bought the physical book and not the ebook bundle, and you also want all of the goodies that go along with that, the meditations are amazing. And I went to an actual studio for those. So that was pretty fun. So talking about portals are basically ley lines of energy intersecting to create some sort of vortex. You have portals in the body, which are actually just intersections of meridians in the body, which create chakras, no surprise there. And then we've got portals on the planet, intersection of ley lines, which create the vortexes that we have. And then you also, this is so cool, I learned this from an astrophysicist at one of my conferences. And there are ley lines in the universe, and astrophysicists call them flux lines of the universe. And when these giant flux lines of electromagnetic frequency intersect, what do they create? They create stargates, right? Same thing. It's just portals at every level of the universe, which I think is pretty badass. And obviously, I get very excited about that. But that's how interdimensional travel happens, right? Is through these flux lines, is through these stargates. Like that's how it happens. So what do portals help us do? Basically, portals are giant amplifiers. They amplify our frequency. And that's why I believe in a lot of ways that, you know, people say LA, Hollywood, it'll eat you up and it'll spit you back out. Because if you come here with inauthentic intentions, which most people do, you're going to get chewed up. All of those inauthentic intentions, all of those insecurities and doubts are all going to get freaking amplified by one of the biggest portals on the planet, which is the Hollywood portal, right? I didn't realize that there was a portal here until I really tuned into it, probably like year 2 of 3 years of being here. And so this portal is like literally right in the middle of Hollywood. You'll know, Scott, you know, like Hollywood Boulevard. I'm in West Hollywood, so I'm in between Beverly Hills and Hollywood, like right in the center. And luckily, it's a good vibe here. And so I channeled this, and I realized this when I was doing a march. We were doing a protest on Hollywood Boulevard for child sex trafficking. So we're all holding up signs, free the children. We're all yelling at the top of our lungs, no more adrenochrome. My mind is getting blown because there's 500 people who are all syncing together with the same intentions. And it was at that time, which was summer of 20, it wasn't this past summer, it was the summer before that. And yeah. And we transmuted the portal. And then it was after that day, I got this huge download that there's a giant portal in Hollywood. It was taken over by the elite since the dawning of time. There is a giant portal in every major city all over the world because humans are attracted and drawn into portals. That's why cities are created around portals. And that's also why Stonehenge and different huge, you know, architectural sites are all created, even like religious sites are all created around portals and vortexes. And so the entertainment industry has been created around the Hollywood portal because what do? They create a movie, they put their intentions into the portal. Okay, I don't know if they do this consciously or what, or subconsciously. And then that movie, that film, that entertainment, that programming goes out and disseminates to the rest of the world. That is how America has been so influential with mainstream media, is through the Hollywood portal. So basically that march, I was doing a lot of portal work right leading up to that march. During that march, getting all of those people exposing, you know, the corruption within Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard, walking on the stars, saying no more adrenochrome, that shifted it. That shifted the frequency of it. That's what we needed, right? So now that the Hollywood portal is transmuted into light, we're starting to see a lot of very interesting, you know, consciousness evolving entertainment films coming out. And it was right after that Hollywood portal shift as well, where one of my videos, you know, blew up because I started using that portal for light. Oh my goodness, if the dark have taken this portal over and disseminated programming, then can I use this portal to disseminate light, you know, and love and information? Which was incredible. And so now all these light workers are leaving LA. I'm leaving, but, you know, I still have roots here. Because it's transmuted. And so the other day, like it was actually the video that I did a week ago on Prince Philip dying. And I channeled all the information around that and like what that whole purpose, reason, meaning, all that stuff. Videos up on YouTube if people want to check that out. But it was pretty wild. The main message was, right now, the royal family is at its weakest point that it probably ever has been at, especially because of the Meghan Markle stuff and Henry, I believe. And, you know, and then also now Prince Philip, who had a huge position in the whole reptilian stuff, right? Not a huge position up front, huge position on the back end. and now they're weak. Now Queen Elizabeth, the queen of the reptilians, is she's exposed, she's vulnerable. So basically it came through that, you know, we needed to do this mission and basically battle to transmute the portal at Buckingham Palace. And I wasn't sure if we were going to hit up all of the royal portals because there's a lot of them. But yeah, so it was me and we maxed out our Zoom room. I wish I had more like Zoom capacity. We maxed out at 1,000 people almost right away. I was a little bit worried to actually put that video out on YouTube for certain reasons, energetic reasons. We did a bunch of protection first, and we basically all went in with our light weapons. The entire angelic army was there, and this whole army of reptilian rebels who wanted to uprise and have a mutiny against their own species were also there. So it was so wild. It was as above, so below. We had the angels above, we had the reptilian rebel movement below, all coming together. And then all of these human, you know, starseed astro travelers, kind of my team, my army, were all there. And we all came from all sides, from all over the world, to basically bring out our light weapons and battle the darkest, you know, royal family. Even some of the guards and the captains who lived there at Buckingham were there. You know, there was children who were there, like underneath Buckingham Palace, that we also were saving and making sure that they were okay. It was really intense. And this is funny because I do this stuff all the time. I do grid work, I do portal activation, I do battles with reptilians. You know, I've done that for 10 years now, but I always do it alone. I always have my tribe, I always have my troop and my army, you know, in the astral, but I've never done it publicly. I've never been it, you know, been in it in that way. So that was really wild. It was really amazing. Yeah.
Some of the people who were there with you are commenting in the chat box about it. So
yeah,
how is it for you? Like when you talk about you've been battling for 10 years and you have such a positive attitude. So let's talk about the big picture. You know, you're probably more aware because you've had more actual physical experience of the reptilian, the dark side, than most. And yet you've got this very positive attitude. So tell us about that.
Yeah, this is a big part of my book as well. The beginning of my awakening, just like the beginning of my art, like I produce art. It was all like, screw the man. I was always putting Ronald McDonald and like Uncle Sam and American flags and like 9/11 and non-government organizations and even like RFID chips being injected into brains. Like that was all my art, you know, at the beginning, because I was, you know, I was feisty. I was a rebel. I was ready to fight the system. You know, I took global political economy in university. That was my thing. And then I started to awaken further, and I saw a lot of my friends at the time get stuck within the trauma and the overwhelming energy of the dark agendas. And I thought to myself, wow, like I'm pretty distracted right now. I'm not going within. I'm fighting. This can't be all that there is. There's got to be something more than this. And that's when I started to actually connect with my interdimensional family and my cosmic family. That's when I started to realize there is one agenda that is for sure taking place on this planet, which is very clear, especially these days. But there's another agenda taking place. There's an even higher agenda, which is the Galactic Federation and these incredibly powerful and advanced beings who want to help us because we are incredibly powerful and advanced, you know? And then there's an even greater agenda, which is just pure source energy, which is everything and nothing simultaneously. So what I've been practicing is not to be on one side of darkness or light, because that's when we put ourselves into a position of being a student. If you want to be a student, stay in the darkness. Get all that there is to get from the darkness. Don't be ignorant to what is out there. Understand that it's happening, sure, but move on, you know, eventually, right? Then you move into the light and it's like, wow, this is amazing and it feels so good and this is what true happiness is and I'm manifesting all these things. but that also isn't all that there is. Then we come to a place where we've really understood and been a student on both sides of the coin, where we can end up right in the middle in this beautiful objective cushion of awareness. And that's when you get to dabble, right? That's when you really become the master of your reality, where you've experienced all dark and all light, and then you can choose, today I'm going to have a challenging day because I understand that a challenge will allow me to grow and move forward. Today I'm going to have a beautiful day of high vibrations and appreciations because I understand that, this really soothes my soul and this is what I need right now. So when you come to that place of equanimity, of objective awareness without any reaction or attachment or expectation, that is the ultimate freedom. And not to say that I'm there to any capacity, because I'm still in it and learning, but it is from that place where I feel most comfortable. And that's why I think I'm optimistic without being ignorant to the dark side,
One of the things that is really probably my favorite teaching, so this is a Scott teaching that's connected, is when we're making an important choice in our life, may it always be a movement forward of something we long for, as opposed to a reaction away from something we're repulsed by or hate. So it's like, even something as intense as child sex slavery, okay, this is about as bad as it gets. The movement toward the longing for all children to be free, versus attacking people that are enslaving the children. It's like a really important energetic shift to help us get out of polarity. Because as long as we're stuck in right, wrong, good, bad, look, every soldier who ever went to war thought God was on their side and the other guys were evil, right? So as long as we're stuck in that right, wrong, good, bad thing, we're stuck. And the way to transcend it at this is to practice, what am I longing for? Okay, I really don't like that. I'm judging that. I don't like that. Cool. Underneath it, what are you longing for? And then work toward what you long for. So I just wanted to pop that in there because it's my favorite Scott teaching. There are people asking lots and lots of questions, starting with Trish.
Yeah, I was like, oh, tell us again.
I saw the finger. Trish,
I know.
the finger.
It's I've developed ways to tell people. More a personal question for myself, but I'm sure other people want to know, is how do you get in touch to participate in the weeklies, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about how to get, to be part of the coaching packages, the groups, so we can share there?
Yeah, for sure. So that is, all you have to do is sign up for my YouTube membership, which is $10 a month. And then the coaching call is once a month for all of the members. There's no guarantee that you're going to be chosen because there's a lot of people in the room, but I choose everyone intuitively. And it's been incredible. And I always set the intention that anyone who is chosen, maybe it's a cosmic past life that we go into, maybe it's a chakra block, maybe it's an issue with your mother, that we tap into, but there is always a deep mirror reflection for everyone in the room. Everyone who's chosen is always deeply in resonance with everyone else, even though it's very personal information. All humans experience the same challenges and limitations because we're all contained in this physical 3D reality, right? So, yeah.
Awesome. Just to tap in on some of the questions, and I'll read a couple of them, and you can pick which ones you want to. Is that cool, Scott?
Yeah.
So the first one is, I remember coming into my body when I was 3 years old. Are you aware of this type of experience for hybrid humans? Should I read them all and just let you pick?
No. Let's start with this one. This is good. I'll let you discern which ones feel most aligned.
Okay, cool.
But this is a great one to start off with. This is actually in my book. I wasn't going to put this in my book, but it ended up coming out. It's in the chapter where I go over the main species on the planet. and your potential personality traits or physical traits of being connected to those species. Now, right before I go into all of the different interdimensional beings in the book, in that chapter, I talk about the different hybridizations. So there's three main ones, I believe. But one of the hybridizations is a walk-in, right? Is having a walk-in experience. And I love psychology as it is. Like, I'm just so kind of curious and love to observe someone's story. And I go over all of the different kind of symptoms that you're going to experience being a walk-in hybrid, which means that at a certain point in time, your human soul chose to have an exit to bring in an interdimensional being into that body for a reason or a mission or what have you. Now, what's really interesting, and I don't think I've heard this from anyone else, but I also don't know what's out there. What I've channeled time and time again through hybrid walk-in clients of mine is the hybrid being coming into the body, whether it be at 3 years old, at 30 years old, and sometimes even later in life, but usually in childhood, is actually just a parallel version of yourself. One of my biggest questions is like, that's kind of intrusive, that feels violating. Like, why would we ever want that to happen? Why would we ever want to leave? And ultimately it's actually just a higher or different dimensional version of you and your soul group, which is just all you coming into the body. And that's actually the only reason why that different element of you can come into the body, is because there's a resonance there.
Yes. I do want to read a comment. It says, "Oh my God, you said light." We were having a whole dark conversation. She's like, "Oh my God, you said light, and the light in my living room turned on." Totally. How do you know that you're living your soul's purpose?
Great question. Yeah, that's another big chapter in the book, is your soul mission. And I go through some of the most common soul missions. And my kind of hope is that when people read those soul missions, they can be like, oh, I'm a grid worker, or I'm a healer, or I'm a pillar, or I'm a satellite, or I'm a teacher. And it's funny because by the end of the book, you could be like, I'm an Anunnaki walk-in with a Palladian hybrid DNA who's actually here to be a grid worker, but also sometimes the pillar for humanity. It's like, what are you? Who are you? Why are you here? So my biggest thing with your mission, your soul mission, your path is follow your highest excitement. It's really as simple as that. Like, if your highest path is, you're like, I'm really craving mac and cheese, and you decide to eat that mac and cheese, that is your mission in that moment. That is your soul's highest purpose and longing in that moment. And we have to follow that. And if we're not following that, we're creating resistance. If we're creating resistance, we're creating energetic trauma that we got to go back and clear eventually. So really, just the path of least resistance is always the highest excitement. And maybe right now you're like, I don't know what I need to do for a living to make money to live in this world. But if you start following your highest excitement with the food that you eat, or the things that you drink, or the exercise that you have, or the clothes that you wear, then eventually that's going to lead into following your highest excitement and unraveling that reality within your work life as well.
Yes. A couple more questions. Just where can they? People are asking about where they can find more information about the portals around the world and the U.S. Like, one was specifically about Houston, Texas. Where can they find more information about that?
I would highly recommend looking it up. So there's actually things called ley lines. I was taught in the world of dowsing and dowsing rods and walking the land and finding the energetic frequencies. So it's an actual science that you can take a look and see where the ley lines intersect. There are much smaller ley lines, and then there are much bigger ley lines. So that's something that I would take a look at. And then if people want to just know more in general about portals, I have tons of videos on YouTube about portals. So I recommend them just searching in the search portals, and you should find a couple there. But yeah, as far as the ones that are around you, take a look at ley lines and see what you can kind of discover on a map.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
My personal last question is really to address that. I loved what you were saying. I just want to kind of bring it back to something you were saying about if you want to be a student, being in the light or the dark, and can you talk a little bit more about the place of non-duality and what that looks like and how we all, people watching, can stay there?
Big time. Oh my goodness. So I think just to your point right at the end, to stay there, that's the biggest kicker, right? It's like there's these moments in the day where we feel so blissed out and we're listening to that song and we're walking around and it's a gorgeous day and we're like so 5D. And then we get home and we're pulled right back into, the trenches of the 3D. So the biggest thing is, in order to get ourselves into neutrality, we got to do the energy work. We got to do the shadow work. We got to unpack all of the layers of ourself. When you deal with the layers of this lifetime, then you go even deeper into all of the layers of all of the past lifetimes. If you deal with that, then maybe you do some ancestral stuff, right? So it's deeper and deeper. That's all the cycles of the ego deaths is just going deeper. Like, I thought I dealt with this. Oh, nope, there's another layer, another little surprise there for you. So that's always going to happen. We're always going to go through that. I'm grateful for going through that. Life would be boring without that, which is amazing. But if you're like, I am exhausted being up and down and all over the place, I want to find peace and serenity and 0 point frequency or neutrality. I have a list of things that will bring you into neutrality. Nature, ding, 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 number one. Okay, plants are not judging you. They are not creating their own reality. They are not projecting anything on you. So when we connect with nature in, plants on my desk or what have you, we bring ourselves into that 0 point neutrality. Animals and children can actually be the same thing. They're very pure in their essence of not really creating their reality, especially children. It depends on what age they are, but 5 and under, they're just these little balls of pure energy, right? And so that's a place of neutrality as well that we can get to. And then to maintain it is really just to bring awareness to every choice, every decision, every thought in your reality, which takes a lot of work to maintain that. So when something comes up that is 3D, that is triggering or is challenging, you can observe it objectively, and let it pass you by, or learn something from it, or take action on it, but without the reaction, right? We're always going to get hit with challenge, but as long as we don't hold that reaction, we're not creating the energetic reverberation for it to come back to us in the future. Deal with it in the moment, neutralize it in the moment, and move on. So you never have to deal with it again. And that's what these portals are. We're bringing the light to the darkest portals of the world so that we can neutralize the frequency of these portals so that they can benefit the whole, the collective, not just the 1%.
Beautiful. Underneath what she said, what's so important is non-judgment, right? And like she was talking about the healing, nature doesn't judge us. Our dogs and cats don't judge us. Well, cats maybe a little bit. If we don't touch them quite at the time and the way they want, we might get a little judgment from the cat. But you get the point that I'm making. Sorry about that to Winston. That's Trish's cat.
No, he's cool.
But the point being is really surround yourself in non-judgment. And likewise, notice when we're in judgment, like she said, okay, judgments are going to come up. Don't judge yourself for judging, but don't react to the judgment. Transcend it into presence of what is.
Yep.
Prince Siddhartha became the Buddha of compassion when he accepted there is suffering. Right? And that's just such an important lesson for all of us, right? Is to, when we see something we don't like, when we see a judgment about ourselves, about our husband, our wife, our lover, our friend, our coworker, whoever it is, even Trump. Notice the judgment, but don't stay there. Don't react to it. What is it underneath it that I'm longing for? I'm longing for more honesty. I'm longing for peace. I'm longing for kindness, right? What's the longing underneath it, right? Including with yourself. And so that presence, that notice how Elizabeth keeps bringing it back to presence. Be with it. Don't react against it or to it. Be with it. That presence, right? So
And
I,
just to say one thing about what Elizabeth Apr was saying earlier, Scott, like I always love what you say, but it was like, she's like, life would be really boring without, doing all the things. Like, don't take my freakouts away. I want to be with those. Like, I'm human. Don't take them away. I'm here for a reason. Like, this is Disneyland over here. Like, I'm gonna wee, and then I'm gonna wee, like, and that's what I like to be with those places too. And I loved that what you were saying, Elizabeth and Scott, is just like being with it, whatever it is, and you don't have to move into the world as like a grumpy old or a spiritual bypassing optimist or whatever, like you can be with all the things. You can have anxiety and be a visionary.
and enjoy the earth. Be a hedonist. Whatever it is, John, I love John Robbins. He's been on our show a few times, and he wrote Diet for a New America. So he's like one of the foremost speakers on vegetarian diet. But even John says, it's better to eat a hot dog with love in your heart than the perfect vegan meal with judgment, right?
Yes.
So remember, it's all life, God, source experiencing itself through you. So enjoy the ice cream sundae. Enjoy whatever it is. Don't judge. Enjoy it, right? And if you choose to get vaccinated, thank you for this vaccine that's going to serve me, right? Whatever it is. It's not. Remember, one last quote that goes along with this. Deepak Chopra, who's been on our show, had a great quote. People don't die from cancer. They die from the diagnosis of cancer.
Wow.
I mean, it's just like, there it is. So it's like, again, noticing what our reaction is and not letting the reaction fuel our fear, fuel the polarization. Love it. Love it all. Love it. Right?
Yep.
So, well, I so love both of you. You are my two favorite female millennials, along with Emily. I got to put Emily in there too. So God bless those awesome female millennials leading the way for us. One more time, I'm going to go to your book. And so, oh, that's the wrong one.
I see what you're really doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of millennial.
Yeah, well,
Well, in the meantime, I'm really excited to read her book and to get on your group coaching calls. I hope that some people were requesting Akashic Record group coaching, just so you know.
So get the book. You're not dying, you're just waking up. Or go to your website to get the whole package of goodies, And certainly if you've not subscribed yet to Elizabeth's YouTube channel, you got to do that. A lot of people who fought with you and battled the Battle of Buckingham Palace. Elizabeth Apr versus Buckingham Palace said, oh my God, that was so amazing. And they all want to do it again. So Elizabeth, thank you so much for being who you are. And for leading the way and being on our show. And I have the greatest respect for you, and I know we all do.
Well, thank you.
And hey, everybody,
thank you.
All of you watching, the 100+ watching in the Zoom room, the people on Facebook, and those watching the recording, share this, put this out there. There's so much amazing content, so many tools Elizabeth gave us tonight. So please share it in your group, share it on your page. This is how we get the wisdom of Elizabeth out to the world. All right. So please share it. That's how you can show your appreciation. All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.